Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Slovak Living Abroad, Start Your Life in Europe. We have just a few reminders before we get started as well. We'll just go on to the next slide. So if you have any comments or questions, please pop them in the comment section. And if you have any feedback, we also do have a survey, which will be in the description. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you want to see more of this content. Thank you. So today we'll be covering what the Slovak Living Abroad certificate is, if you're eligible for the program, how to have a successful application, as well as a live Q&A with you, the audience. Today we're joined by our wonderful moderator, Eva Hussain, who's Polaron's founder and director. Eva is super passionate about helping people get EU citizenship and understands the process better than anyone. She is a recognized leader in the fields of European citizenship and translations, and regularly presents on these topics at universities and training institutions. We are also joined by our lovely guest speakers, Jakub and Stepanka. Jakub is the Slovak and Czech citizenship manager here at Polaron, and he's responsible for ensuring clients have a smooth process in their journey to Slovak citizenship. Stepanka is an administration specialist at Polaron for Czech and Slovak citizenship as well. Thank you so much to both of you for joining us today. So we have one more slide and then I'll hand over to Jakub shortly. So since 2003, we've helped over 15,000 people obtain EU citizenship and reconnect with their European heritage. All of our clients receive administrative, linguistic, and project management support, as well as a dedicated case manager throughout their journey. If this is something you're interested in, please reach out to our team for an obligation-free quote. I'll now hand over to Jakub, who has a short presentation for us. Thank you so much, Jakub.
Thank you to Stephanie. Hello, everyone. It's very nice to be here at the YouTube webinars again. And today we will be talking about Slovak Living Abroad certificate, which is something maybe not as well known as citizenship option for people of Slovak descent, but it's definitely something you should know about because even when you are, for example, not eligible for Slovak citizenship, because the requirements for being eligible for Slovak citizenships can be tough sometimes, you can still consider this option, proving that you are actually of a Slovak heritage, of Slovak origin. And yeah, let's get into it. So what is the Slovak Living Abroad certificate? It's a card which most of all, it proves that you are part of the Slovak nation. It's not the same as a Slovak citizenship yet, but it's official document or it's certificate, or let's say a small card proving that you are a part of a Slovak nation, Slovak Living Abroad, as the name says. The Slovak Living Abroad certificate also allows you to live in Slovakia. So when you are applying for visa or residence in Slovakia, it's one of the reasons which you can state as why you want to stay in Slovakia. And it's an excellent option for people who are not eligible for some reasons for Slovak citizenship by descent, because it can also help you to be eligible actually later for the Slovak citizenship. And anyone can apply for Slovak Living Abroad certificate, but not everyone's application will be approved. So it's very important to have your application well prepared, and you need to meet some criteria, which we will be talk about. But first, the benefits of the Slovak Living Abroad certificate. Why should you take this journey, and why should you obtain SLA certificate? So this certificate allows you to live, study, work, or even start a business in Slovakia. And with this certificate, you can stay in Slovakia for up to 5 years, which is usually long time enough to get an actual citizenship. You can apply for naturalization in Slovakia after 3 years instead of 8 or sometimes even longer. And in some cases, when you have one of your parents, grandparents, or even great-grandparents, former Czechoslovak or Slovak citizens, you can even applying right away. So it's definitely a good thing, and you don't have to prove the knowledge of the Slovak language, which is probably also very important because Slovak language can be hard to learn if you didn't grow up speaking Slovak. And it's also a very good way to get an EU passport because Slovakia, you need to remind, Slovakia is part of an European Union. So with Slovak passport, you can later live anywhere in EU and also work. Eligibility criteria. The most important thing is to have some Slovak heritage. Actually, it can be even great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents, or even more generations back to the history. But we need to prove not only that they were born in territory of today's Slovakia, but also that they were of Slovak nationality. This can be a little bit tricky because in Europe, nationality and citizenship is not always the same. For example, you can live in Slovakia, be a Slovak citizen, but of Hungarian nationality. So actually the criteria for getting Slovak Living Abroad certificate is to have ancestor which was of Slovak nationality. So, and this can be, for example, found out in Slovak National Archives, or they even accept the ship manifests, ship list of passengers coming to different countries, United States, Australia, if they include the information about the passenger's nationality. Another important thing is understanding of Slovak culture, or officially they say showing the national awareness. This can be done by either proving some of your public activities to promoting Slovakia, for example, organizing some Slovak parade in your town, or basically just showing by some public activities that you still have connection with Slovakia. Or the easiest way is probably to be a member of some Slovak compatriot organization in the country where you are living, because this organization can later issue you a letter stating that you are a member, and which is taken by Slovak authorities as proof that you can show your national awareness. I will also mention that this application for certificate needs to be submitted through Slovak embassy. Now, I hope I explained it clearly enough so far. And now I will hand over to Eva and Stepanka, and I hope we will discuss this topic more into details.
And of course, as always, you have explained things very clearly, Jakub. I only have 2 questions just in terms of clarification. One is about the fact that your Slovak ancestor needs to be in direct line. Am I correct?
Yes, that's right. For example, it cannot be an uncle or an aunt. It needs to be either father, grandfather, great-grandfather, as you mentioned, direct line.
Right.
That's very...
But essentially, technically speaking, there's no limit on generation, right? And the second
That's right.
question I have is about the Slovak organization. So this is something that can be problematic in countries where the diaspora isn't very large. So what the Slovak government, is my understanding, has done is they've come up with a list of approved organizations. Is that right?
That's right. It can be found actually because the Slovak Living Abroad certificates are handled by Office for Slovaks Living Abroad in Bratislava, Slovakia. And they have on their website, we can get a link, give a link to the description of the webinar. So this website has a list of all the organizations which are accepted for every country. If in some countries where there is virtually non-Slovak diaspora, there is an exception that 2 letters from other holders of Slovak Living Abroad certificate is enough. But usually, for example, United States, Australia, United Kingdom, there are these compatriot organizations which can issue this letter that you are a member for some time and you are participating.
And of course, we've worked hard ourselves to establish good networks and good relationships with these organizations that can and do provide certificates. So both of you, Stepanka and Jakub, I wanted to go back to basics. And for some people is understanding the difference between Czechoslovakia, Czech Republic, and Slovakia. Stepanka, please explain.
So in the easiest way, we were once 2 countries together, which was named Czechoslovakia. Then we separated, really quite peacefully, thank God. And now we are Czech Republic and Slovakia. So 2 different countries. We can understand each other. The languages are quite similar, but the 2 countries have their own system. They are completely separate countries.
Right. Thank you for that. And what it of course also means that the 2 countries have different legislation when it comes to citizenship. So what Jakub so expertly explained to us applies only to Slovakia. When Jakub first started with us, this is now 3 years ago, maybe longer, and we were analyzing the legislation in a lot of detail. We also realized that you cannot be both Slovak and Czech unless there's one exception, Jakub, yeah?
Yeah, there is actually one exception, and that is if you have one parent Czech and one parent Slovak, and you were born after 1993, which was the year when Czechoslovakia was split up. So in that case, you can have both Czech and Slovak, but otherwise they are naturally trying to prevent people who were former Czechoslovak to have both Czech and Slovak. You basically had to choose in 1993 or 1992.
Right. So they are mutually exclusive. So the reason I'm talking about that, Jakub and Stepanka, is that people are sometimes confused about their own identity because they may have, or their grandparents, great-grandparents may have been born in Czechoslovakia as it was then. And it is now either Czech Republic, Slovakia, or sometimes even Ukraine, because there are areas of the country that kind of geographically belong to other countries now. So going back to the matter at hand, which is the Slovak Living Abroad, and you made that very clear, Jakub, you made a distinction between citizenship and nationality. What the Slovak government is looking for is your identity, right? That you identify as a Slovak national. Is that correct?
That's right. For example, in 1930 or 1921, there were censuses in Czechoslovakia, and there were 2 questions for citizenship and for nationality, which means how to identify. And it's very important because if we can get this from the Slovak National Archives, then we can see that usually for 95%, let's say, people identified as a Slovak nationality, which means that they feel they are part of the Slovak nation. And this is, sufficient proof for the Slovak authorities. But it's not the same as citizenship because citizenship was Czechoslovak back then. So let's say in 1930, your ancestors probably stayed citizenship Czechoslovak, but nationality Slovak, and that's the difference.
Mm-hmm. But once people immigrated, I think it's fair to say that people didn't consider themselves Czechoslovak; they considered themselves either Slovak or Czech. That's my experience here. So for example, here in Melbourne, where I'm speaking to you from, there is a Czech consulate and a Slovak consulate. And yes, they can understand each other. And I heard them speak, I don't know whether they speak Czech or Slovak, but as far as people's identities, they are quite separate, both historically and culturally and every other way, right?
Yes. And as you mentioned, when people emigrated either to the United States or any other country, they personally were identifying either with Czech or Slovak nation. Not, for example, I understand that people know that their grandparents were from Czechoslovakia, but first step is usually to find out if they were Czech or Slovak. If they were Czech, we can offer them Czech citizenship and other services. But if they were Slovak, there is a good chance that you are qualifying for a Slovak Living Abroad certificate or even citizenship maybe.
Stepanka, Jakub mentioned earlier consulates. I don't know if in your job had much to do with consulates. I do. And I once went to the Slovak consulate in Canberra. And the Polish language, which is my mother tongue, is also quite similar. So the consul did not speak English, but we communicated. I spoke to her in Polish, she spoke Slovak back, and we somehow managed. But there is a process that you cannot bypass when you apply for Slovak Living Abroad of going to the consulate for an interview. And there, what do you have to prove, or what kind of, firstly, documents, which Jakub's already mentioned, but is it like, do they give you a hard time as far as you know? Are they flexible? Like what happens at the interview?
Well, in our experience, the application is prepared by us for the client. So we will give them the package, and they just have to take it and go to the consulate and give it to the officials. But in our experience, the documents have to be prepared very meticulously. They are really big on mistakes. So we are hands-on each document and trying really to have the best application of the best. So they need to hand in the documents, the letter proving that they are members of some kind of Slovak organization, and some other documents, checks they need to hand over, but we are preparing all of it for them. And so our clients don't have to be worried when handing over the application, because we are preparing as best as we can, and there are often no problems with it.
And Stepanka, in terms of what goes into the application, if there are things that need to be translated, we handle that, right? If there's research that needs to be done in order to find additional documents, we do that as well, yeah? So you yourself working in, I think Jakub introduced you as an administrative specialist. What kind of things would you be doing for someone that's applying for Slovak Living Abroad specifically?
So we are, I specifically would be preparing our clients' forms. So we will write it all in Slovak language. I will get all the documents that need to be translated. I will send them to our translator. When we will get it back, I am checking all the translation if they are all right and all the numbers and so on are correct. So there is no mistake before handing the documents, the prepared documents to our client. So I'm trying. Sometimes we are searching through the archives in Slovakia and looking for the additional documents that can really prove that this is really of Slovak origin. Our ancestor was really Slovak. So I'm handling all this in the process.
Right. And Jakub, me and you have had quite a few dealings with Slovak government, both you in Europe and also through different consular activities. And I personally found them very helpful, but very, very strict on a lot of things, right? And for that reason, sometimes our clients are quite frustrated because the rules are very rigid. They're not super flexible. So you often act as a buffer between clients and the government, because you speak the language and you kind of can navigate and understand what they're really trying to say. But I think overall, the experience with consulate, it's overall positive. Yeah, would you say?
Yeah, it is. They are, we can say they are maybe strict, but they are just acting according to Slovak law. So they don't have much other options. For example, the clients need to submit the application on the consulates themselves, which is, I understand clients can be angry about it sometimes, but it's just in the law. So they are very helpful at the consulates. They are trying, to help them as much as possible. So we cannot really complain. And if you have the application ready according to their instructions, then they are helpful,
problems.
and there is no problem with them. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think so people that are watching this, we don't know where you're from, but we can tell you that our clients come from everywhere. So I think the furthest afield, this was actually for Czech citizenship, but I think we had, was it Zimbabwe? There was some places in Africa, Kenya, or one of those, yeah?
Yeah, so in different countries there can be, for example, some problem to getting documents, but usually the consulates are the point where they will be helping you. So if you, for example, have some ancestors from countries like this, and then you deeper in the future from Slovakia, of course, they are able to navigate you also to help you get the documents properly certified, or we are helping with that actually, but if there are some doubts, they can clarify that, and they can also help you to get the birth and marriage certificates from Slovakia, which is also very useful. And yeah, I mean, for example, I even called with some consuls of Slovakia on WhatsApp, believe it or not. So they are, and probably after their working hours, so they are very, very helpful when they see you need some help.
That's right. And even during COVID, we were working with a Slovak consulate in South Korea, I think, and Singapore, and depending on where our clients come from, we sometimes have to support them through consulates of the countries that they live. Stepanka, Jakub mentioned documents. So this is something I also wanted to cover. Because over the time that you've been working at Polaron, you have seen it all, right? You've seen all kinds of documents coming from all kinds of places. And sometimes one of the things that people don't understand is that the Slovak government will ask you for originals or things with apostilles or certified in a particular way, yeah? So is your role also to explain to people what they need to provide and in what sort of format? Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yes, so when we first get our client, we have a kickoff meeting with him, and we will prepare a list of all the needed documents with that says this document needs to be apostilled, this document needs to be notarized and apostilled, and then we are sending them the exact instructions how to get the apostille, what it is, just where to write. We also can prepare the email for you, so you just need to send it, because Slovak government wants our clients to hand it in person, but we will prepare all the emails, we'll translate the emails if they came back in Slovakia, and yeah, we will handle all the process. We are just behind the scenes, and we just need to send the email and send the documents from A to B, but we will give you perfectly clear instructions how to do it, who to send it to, how long it can take, and all of it is taken care by us.
Wonderful. And Jakub, in terms of looking for documents, the Slovak government also has very prescriptive and strict rules about what types of documents you can get for your ancestors where from. And in my experience, limited experience, I know that it's quite different than working with the Czech government. So can you maybe tell us a bit more about how difficult or how easy it is to find certain documents for your Slovak clients?
So I need to confess that in Slovakia, it's probably a little bit harder to find documents than in Czech Republic, because in Czech Republic, most of the documents, archival documents, birth, marriage, death registries, censuses are digitalized already. So if you know where to look for them, you can even find them yourself online. In Slovakia, it's not so easy, because you usually need to send a written request to or by email usually, or but request to some archive, and then they can provide you with the information. There is one exception. They recently they started to scan census sheets for census in 1930. So this will be available soon, and we are looking forward to that. But otherwise, let's say I would say that they are starting with the digitalization, in Slovakia. Some documents can be also found on Family Search, but that's just a small part. So they are still working on it in Slovakia, but it's definitely possible to get these documents. You just need to deal with the archive directly and not just find it on some website, as we are used to, for example, in the Czech Republic.
Right. And as Stepanka said, we do need to provide original or certified copies from the archives. And the other thing, just briefly, before we move on to questions, Slovakia, in addition to the very strict EU laws, have also strict privacy laws, meaning that they, in terms of, for example, us representing clients, it's not as easy as in some other countries. And also access to the documentation can be a lot more difficult, I think, in terms of what you said, that a lot of the resources are not digitalized. And sometimes it is the client themselves that have to show what we call legal interest or kinship. We can help them with managing of that interaction, but they need to be active participants, which is sometimes a little bit frustrating, I guess, for some people, yeah?
Yeah, that's right. Because people, for example, we can help them here in Europe to get all the archival documents and so on, but we also need them to, for example, provide their own birth certificate or their own marriage certificate. So this is usually sometimes we cannot really help them with because of the privacy laws in United States or in other countries where the clients are living. So they, but I would say 99% of the clients are very helpful, and it's great to work with them.
Yeah, and luckily we have people like you and Stepanka who really understand how important it is to handle documents properly, how important it is to be really precise in things like translation, and it just makes it easier and the process a lot more smoother. We have 3 minutes left and probably time for 1 or 2 questions. I'll hand over to Stephanie in case there are any burning questions from the audience.
Thank you so much, Eva. So we do have a question from Roman. Roman's asked, I was wondering if you could please highlight for me what has been learned over the past year about the new changes to citizenship by descent laws. And also because when he started discussing with Polaron, the Slovak Living Abroad certificate was quite new. So
that's a Jakub question. Go for it, Jakub.
Yes. Thank you very much. So yeah, this Slovak Living Abroad certificate is around for since 2005, but last year, just to explain, there was, or even 2 years ago already, there were some changes in Slovak citizenship laws. So basically, if you get a Slovak Living Abroad certificate, you just need to formally register your residence in Slovakia, and you can apply for Slovak citizenship right away. No need for any period of residence if one condition is fulfilled, and that's that you have at least one parent, grandparent, or great-grandparent Czechoslovak citizen born in Slovakia, which is 99% of the holders of Slovak Living Abroad certificate. If you would have some ancestors from 19th century, let's say, then you are eligible for Slovak Living Abroad certificate, but not for citizenship right away. But if your ancestors emigrated in 20th century, you are usually able to apply for Slovak citizenship right away. This application can be submitted on the Slovak embassy or consulate, again in person, so no need to travel to Slovakia for that. And it's a good thing that with Slovak Living Abroad certificate, you don't have to prove your language knowledge, so you don't have to prove the knowledge of the Slovak language, which is, I guess, very, very useful for most of the clients. So yeah, the laws and our experience with this is that the Slovak authorities are, they can decide about this for up to 2 years. So they are still deciding about most of the applications we submitted that way. But generally, at the consulates, they were very helpful, and they already know this new law, because when it was introduced, it was still a little bit, let's say, chaos. But now they know what's going on, and they are very helpful. So most of the applications was submitted already.
Well, guess what? We're out of time. Stepanka, didn't I say that half an hour is going to fly by? I did, didn't I?
Yes,
We're out of time and we don't have time for any more questions, but you can contact us anytime if you go to our website. We are very active on social media, and we have a very, very competent team in the Czech Republic. If you don't believe me, just look up all the reviews that Jakub gets. It makes us blush, but also very proud of the team. So thank you both so much, Jakub and Stepanka, for participating today. That was very eye-opening. I think if anyone is interested in pursuing Slovak living abroad, don't worry. It sounds like a complicated process, but we make it simple. And we support you with language, documents, all the right elements of a successful application. Our contact details are there on the screen. Sorry, I've taken over from Stephanie. My apologies, but we are out of time, so we've got to run. But thank you, Jakub. Thank you, Stepanka. Thank you, Stephanie. Anyone, any questions, email us. You've also got a QR code there on the screen and our socials. So thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much,
Thank you
Eva.
for inviting us.